There we go. All right, let's get this thing set up a little bit better. And while we wait for people to show up. What happened? Really? Is it that sensitive? Phone's right here. All right. There we go. Neverboard S10's just jumped in. Oh, he's rocking the baby to sleep. All right. That's new mommy daddy territory right there. Marcus, our youngest, is 11 now. So um, I had intended on backing the truck out, making some room and doing some little bit of welding this evening. Running late, getting home from work, and my Starlink decided it does not want to work, so I'm using my phone as a hotspot. So I'm going to also have to go run and grab a charge cord here shortly and plug it into the computer because the computer is plugged in. While we wait on everybody to show up, hopefully we'll get a couple people. It's been a few weeks since I've done some live streams. I understand. I've lost my audience because I also changed to Friday nights. I want to be able to try to simultaneously work and the whole thing there's rocking. All right, trying to simultaneously work in the garage and hold the live stream is the goal. I do have on the way an AI camera that will pan, tilt, zoom, follow me around a little bit in the shop. So when I'm working on a project, it can act as a camera person and keep me in camera. So looks like we got two people. I don't know who the other person is from Neverboard S10 Addict and somebody else. We got a lurker that hasn't announced themselves yet. It's probably Mandy. It could be Ray. Send him a reminder. Hey, Mark's Garage Channel. How you doing, Mark? Oh, you were my lurker, huh? You were the first person to recognize me at the No Name Nationals, Mark. And silly me, I couldn't recognize you. I eventually placed that you had the older. It's a Jimmy. I mistakenly called it a Chevy, but what is that? A 50 or so truck? All right. He said, explain more on the AI camera. Let me move this toolbox that's right behind me. The AI camera, it's got facial recognition, which a lot of cameras do. It uses that facial recognition to track 47 GMC. See, I was still a few years off. The facial recognition, it uses that to activate the pan and tilt. I think it even has some zoom built in. I don't know how active the zoom works. Let me turn this light a little bit. It's washing me out. Yeah, a little bit better. A little bit better. I might point that at the ceiling. Might be a better option because it's now aimed at the truck window back there. But yeah, it uses that to try to track the person that's on the webcam. I think I'm going to try to see if I can also use that kind of as a recording device in the shop too. Just set it up with a laptop or something and let it record, and that way, when I'm out in the shop and moving around, instead of having a camera person, which I typically work out here by myself, I'll just let the AI camera track me around. Hopefully, I also have a new microphone, and last weekend we were recording a transmission swap. That video is not quite out yet because the truck's not quite running yet. They did show the truck starts and runs. We had to start with troubleshooting and figuring out that it did need indeed a in-tank fuel pump. We got that in-tank fuel pump replaced. Actually, they did it. I helped troubleshoot, but they did that while I was at work Saturday morning. I returned from work. They had the truck running and in the garage, and they were midway through taking the transmission out. All said and done, we've had that transmission in and out of the truck about 4 times because Square Body Eric is not so into wires and transmissions that have wiring, and he managed to pinch the harness between the bell housing and the engine block the first time. Second time, we did something else too. There was some linkages off, and they even dropped on the 1998 Rams. It doesn't have an actual bolted. The crank position sensor does not bolt into place on the 1998 Rams. There's a little rubber grommet that sits in the bell housing, and you just set the crank position sensor in there. That being said, it also still runs on a distributor. The crank position sensor is more for the electronic fuel injection to tell it what RPM you're at and when to start firing injectors. So that crank position sensor was lost. He didn't keep track of it, and I was doing some other work under the truck trying to get it all bolted up. It turned out that it was just hanging on the other side of the bell housing on the driver's side instead of the passenger side. But we tried as we could not find that. So eventually we did disconnect the transmission, found the sensor, put it in the position where we kind of hung it by a zip tie, got the bell housing, transmission bolted up, and got that stabbed. So, I mean, in and out, that transmission got stabbed about 4 times in one day. We got the transmission stabbed successfully, went to go fill it up. The filler tube, dipstick tube, came off the other transmission, but there's slightly different year models on those transmissions, and apparently one uses either a rubber grommet or a much larger diameter dipstick tube, and they only got about 6 quarts of transmission fluid in out of, I think, a targeted 13 or 14 quarts, and so that leaked all over the floor, created an additional mess on top of the messes we'd already created last weekend. I did find a rubber grommet that will fit that dipstick tube to seal that up. And also, I think we have something still going on with the crank position sensor or something else with the ECU that we'll have to reset and get it working. So we just towed that thing out of the way because Square Body Eric also drives a semi-truck hauling grain during the week, and he needed to put some new tires on the rear axle. So we towed that Ram pickup out, and he got in here and was able to do that while I got to come back over here and start working on my project again. That being said, between Saturday night and Sunday morning, I left my camera. All right, well, Neverboard's got to leave, take care of the kid. That's all right. Family first. So anyway, left my camera on a tripod under the truck, plugged in, and when I come back out Sunday morning, the plug for the power cord, and it was one of those cheap Amazon cameras, and the batteries are crud on that thing. They'll hold about 20 minutes worth of charge, and you're constantly either changing batteries, which interrupts your filming because the camera just dies on you. And so I typically just kept that camera on a life support charge cord, no matter what. If you bump the cord loose, at least you got a battery, and then you come back and plug that thing back in. But Sunday morning, I come back out here, and lo and behold, it took me a while to figure it out, but the charge port on that camera is now broken off. So there's no way to charge the batteries on that camera, and there's no way to keep it alive. Like I said, it always needs life support. So that camera is getting replaced, and also I'm getting the AI camera. So those two new additions coming soon. That makes camera number 3 that I've destroyed in the 2 years I've been doing YouTube videos. The first one was a 4K camera. Again, it was a cheap Amazon one, but I dropped a tree on it. Destroyed both the camera and the tripod. Go figure. Tree. Second camera, tipped over multiple times, breaking uh, the part that yeah, I can't wait to see what it does too. Um, the part that turns the camera on and also your screen. You open the screen, it turns the camera on. That part, it works, but you turn the camera on, the next thing you know, your screen is dangling by its power cords. So that was camera number 2. Uh, Camera 3 was this last weekend, and uh, Ray, you've heard about the AI camera. The AI camera, again, so we got a couple more people in here. The AI camera uses facial recognition. It can track two to three people, but it's going to probably track the main person or the person that's facing the camera. Um, and again, I'm usually working out here by myself. So in lieu of having a camera person, the AI should be able to kind of track and keep track of movement and my face or whatever. So hopefully that'll work. We'll give it a shot at least. Hopefully I don't have to constantly face the camera. Maybe get in position and then turn around and work on whatever I'm working on. Or maybe try to turn the project in a way where I could see it and then the camera could see me and the project. So yeah, I've gone through 3 cameras at least. Missing a GoPro. Actually, missing a GoPro that has the um, what is it called? The gimbal. Missing my gimbal GoPro. Just put it away and just don't remember where I put it. It's probably in a suitcase or something from coming back from a trip and just I haven't unpacked it yet. I've got I've kind of shown it on maybe a short or a live stream. I think it was a short. Um, yeah, it was a short or short, kind of a short video. It was a 4-minute video. And I've also got a mail call video coming up. It's edited. I just need to do the thumbnail and post it. It's going to be Mail Call Monday. I was contemplating on releasing it today, and it just didn't happen because I was busy at work. But I am currently fabricating a stainless exhaust from the manifold to the back. It's going to be fully stainless. It's going to go from 2.5 to 3 inch. Just after the transmission cross member is where we'll step it. We're going to put a flex tube in first to let it have some flexibility. The rubber hangers also give it some flexibility. But I will go ahead and show y'all some teasers. I'm going to show you this pipe, and then I'm going to run outside and grab the piece that one of the local shops that's helped me out. He also did the drive shaft for this truck, and he hustled and got that ready for me in time to get the truck to No Name Nationals. I was missing about 2 weeks worth of work that I was trying to cram into the next day. Of course, I was going to be putting a lot of blinders on. Yes. I was going to be putting a lot of blinders on, just get the must-haves done and bring the truck there and work on it and thrash on it there. And not that I would ever be able to pass tech. There's too much soft fuel line in here. The windshield definitely wouldn't pass tech because it's got about 15 cracks in it. Just a lot of stuff that would still need fixed. But I was just trying to get the truck drivable, and I have driven it around the shop, pulled it right back in here. Like I said earlier in the stream, before most of y'all joined, I was planning on taking the truck out of the garage to get some more room, to get lighting set up where the welder is, and I was planning on doing a little bit of welding, and I'll show you what I was planning to weld. That's right. The JSCB logo. I've had it laser cut from Syncut Sand, and there's the backers. I made holes in there to be able to hang it. But the JSCB will get bolted to that. We're going to paint them contrasting colors. Clearly, we're going to, Mark's got to go. Clearly, we're going to paint at least one of them yellow and probably black. Or we might go just put a clear coat on the metal in the back. Or vice versa. I haven't made up my mind yet. But the B, there we go. And those are going to get welded to TIG filler rod and just be floating in there. So from a distance, you won't see that TIG filler rod. And what you can't see right now is I actually ordered two of these. So there's two of these plates, two of those plates, and two of each of those. And this is for a different project that I previously had made by Syndicate Send, and I'd miscalculated the length of that particular link. So that is a replacement for the one I ordered that was the wrong length. And I've got the hardware right here for this. So that's what I was planning on welding tonight, was just going to jump in there and just, again, just TIG weld the TIG filler rod to the those B's, B parts, and then stick them to the back side of that. And so what I did is I got some 5/16 hardware. Well, I went with 5/16 initially because I was going to try to use some of the other leftover fender bolts from the square bodies, because I've picked up a lot of those bolts at junkyards, multiple junkyards. Plus, Square Body Eric has scrapped a few of these square body trucks over the years, so he has big bins and buckets full of those over there. But what I decided to do is, a little chrome don't get you home, but it sure looks good on a sign. So there we go. I've got chrome acorn nuts, and I've got, of course, several different length bolts that I was going to try for. We'll get to the exhaust part. Anyway, just dropped a washer. That's all right. I got plenty of those, guys. So what I was going to do is go through the back of the sign, put a nut, and then stack washers until I almost run out of bolt, then put the top plate on, and then put the acorn nut on top of that. So that's pretty simple. Easy peasy. Just quick hardware store parts there. And, of course, the laser cut, Syndicate Send stuff. All right, so on to the exhaust. Okay. All right. So we have 2.5. This is just some unpolished stainless, 304 stainless, and then 2 3-inch. And this is, don't know where exactly I got it, but I got it off of Amazon. This is highly polished stainless, and I went ahead for an extra $5. I wanted this style of muffler for whatever reason, mainly because they're easy to fit, and they don't weigh a whole lot, and they can be loud. And if you decide they're too loud, you could put more of them in row or put it in front of some other muffler. But this is Flowmaster, and that's also in stainless. And trying to get that to sit still without falling. All right, back over here. What we had initially, coming off the Corvette manifolds, because I got the big block Corvette manifolds from a mid 70s or late 60s, early 70s Corvette style big block manifolds, because they had a very narrow frame, and this is a square body truck, so the frame's pretty much narrow compared to the OBS frames, and even the newer frames are even wider at the engine bay. So coming off the flange, we hit it immediately with one of these 45s. I clocked it as best as I could to aim away from the frame, because the manifold was slightly aimed at the frame. So we immediately pushed away from the frame, and then clocked another piece aimed towards the back of the truck, and got it down between the frame rails, away from the frame. And then I've got to put 2 more of these in there to get it centered between the frame and the transmission and transmission cross member. So I've got the elevation where I want it, but I need to center it left and right to come through where I want it to come through at the transmission cross member. That's on the passenger side. I'm going to run real quick, and I have a piece that the driver's side, I mocked it up, just tack welded it together, and one of the local shops took pity on me and decided he was going to weld this for me. I think I owe him a steak dinner or something. In fact, I'm going to eat breakfast with him in the morning. But he's like, "You've put so much work into that truck. I'm not going to let you run around with ugly stainless welds." So be right back. Alrighty then. So, this side, for some goofy reason, the manifolds were far different from side to side. I kind of liked the driver's side manifold in some ways. It clears the frame and everything quite well, uh, but uses a donut gasket. And I could not find any sort of flange pre-made in stainless that takes a donut gasket. I'd already ordered a pair of these 3-bolt flanges. Still had to kind of oblong these holes just a little bit to make them fit my manifold. And that just could be where they machined these the manifold to take the studs. The studs were pretty long and they kind of aimed in different directions, kind of like a porcupine. So was able to clean these up, get them to fit. Took this part over to the same shop, and he machined that groove to where it would take this recess down to where the donut gasket would sit in there. And then, of course, and he even complained that he was having a tough time getting the coloration right with these cheap stainless pipe because it is Amazon stuff. It's all made in China. So this part took color quite well, I think, but that was also one of these highly polished. That may have been the part he was having problems with. I don't know. But he did the welding here and these joints. Like I said, I just tacked it together and made sure it fit physically in the truck. I got the O2 bungs, one for the ECU and one for my wideband O2 sensors that I'll have in the dash. And at the very end of it, I've added a V-band flange here. So a V-band clamp will be able to connect the front half of the exhaust to the back half of the exhaust. This is just long enough, let me back up, to go from the manifold just past the transmission cross member by about an inch or two. So we put the V-band clamp back there. I'm going to have a short piece of pipe, just enough to get, and I don't have that piece in here right now. I've got a flex pipe that's going to go on the back of that. So we're going to put a stub, a flex pipe, another probably a stub, and then we're going to expand it up to a 3-inch. So that's the game plan. This is already made up. I do currently now, I'll just put a plug in this one for now, put the O2 sensor for the ECU in, and I'll be able to drive this truck around a little bit better. It is registered as an antique. A lot of states kind of look the other direction if you're a little loud when you exhaust with an antique, because it's not meant to be daily driven, right? So that's enough that I can get out of the driveway, not burn up my engine or be running so super rich that that I'm going to be making people asphyxiate at the stoplights and stuff. Because right now, if I run this thing indoors for more than 2 or 3 minutes, it'll choke me out. And my eyes will start watering, and it's excessively rich because that's the default when you don't have O2 sensors plugged into the ECU. So I've got I did plug in on the passenger side as soon as I got that part welded up, and I welded that myself, and it was pretty ugly. I will not show you all that because it's at least it's well hidden under the truck. So maybe if y'all see me somewhere at a car show or a No Name Nationals or something like that, you'll probably want to slide up under there and see how bad my welds are, but they're ugly. And I MIG welded, and I did not have the correct gas for MIG welding stainless. I did try to backflow it with some argon, or the argon CO2. That's what I was using, the C25, and really didn't have an extra regulator, didn't have an extra tank. So what I wound up doing is just the argon CO2 mix is heavier than air, so I put it inside of a box, flowed gas into there for a while, and I managed to get about 20 to 30 seconds, not even that long, probably 10 seconds worth of welding before I'd have to stop and add more gas to the box. Wound up burning up the box pretty well because my options were cardboard or plastic, and I wound up using a square plastic bucket, and that thing is literally destroyed now. Yeah, MIG for stainless needs tri-mix, yes. I had to bite the bullet this week. I completely ran out of welding gas, and the other shop welder also has run out of welding gas, and I was welding something else, but still managed to run us both out of gas. So exchanged my gas, wound up getting more C25, but they talked me into it. They're doing like a layaway plan. I've made my first payment, and I now have a T size bottle of Trigas because my little Q size tank, they will not do a Q size tank in Trigas. The smallest they will do is an S, and the S would be 2 week lead time every time I need it refilled. So, um, so with the 2 week lead time, uh, I was going to have to either pay for another bottle or exchange mine to that size, which is an additional fee to change up a bottle size. And they're like, dude, you're doing enough welding. You've been through a bottle every few months. Just get another bottle. That way you can have one bottle for the fancy welding, one bottle for the other. So yes, that is expensive now. Wound up paying around $600, or we'll be paying 600 and something bucks for both the gas and the bottle. So the bottle new or whatever, paying to own that size bottle is $380, and refilling the Trigas is about 200, 220. So yes, Trigas is not as cheap as argon or CO2, but it is what it is. If you need to weld that stuff, that's what you need. So um, that that is my welding cart's just on the other side of the truck, and seeing a Q size bottle next to a T size bottle, and it feels like it's about to tip the whole MIG cart or the welding cart over. Yeah, I'm better off TIG welding with straight argon. Um, I've gone back and forth. It'll probably wind up eventually having a argon bottle too, just because if I'm using the gases, I don't have as much problem. I'm also going to start taking a paint pen, mark the date on the bottles, because I know after the bottle's a certain age, it expires and has to be recertified. And I've ran into that multiple times over the years with my bottles expiring and then having to pay an additional fee. I wound up paying more for the expired bottle than it was for the gas. So what they told me is just before that bottle expires, bring it in, exchange it. We're always going to give you a newer bottle than your expired bottle. So then they have to take care of recertifying it, not me. So so I will take a paint pen, mark on each bottle, uh, uh, mark on each bottle so I know when to take them back in, because I don't want to run into expired bottles again. But I've gone through 2 bottles in the last year, just with MIG welding alone, not counting the TIG when I was trying to do that. And I did try to do some TIG last weekend, mainly because where it was at and what it was. I just wanted to melt the two pieces back together. Didn't want to add much or any material. Um, but they broke the stud off the starter on the Ram when they were trying to unbolt it. Not the big stud that goes to the batteries, the smaller stud that goes to the ignition switch. And so, long story short, I did take the starter apart enough, and I did finally successfully TIG weld that together. Again, it's not pretty, but it's functional, and no one will ever see it because it's bolted back onto the truck and the starter starts. Um, and I mean, it literally would have been easier to go to the auto parts store, except for we broke that about 10 o'clock at night, and we thought we were going to be able to get it up and running by midnight. And then the guys ran into a situation where they needed a specific size wrench. And even in my mess, I couldn't find that wrench. They don't have too many metric wrenches around this shop. So they decided to call it a night, and they ran and got the brand new wrench in the morning and wound up having to actually heat the wrench with a torch to bend it into shape. But they did make that wrench work to get the transmission cooler lines plugged back in. Cement Surfer, hey, how's it going, buddy? So yeah, we've done some other. I've got a lot of footage that's getting better at making footage that's easy to edit. The stuff for the Rams probably not going to be great to edit, but it's at least it's new stuff that's not just the square body and the big, with the big block. It's a different product, different vehicle, different project altogether. Just something fun. It's a '98. I can't remember the exact model, but the year before it was actually the pace car, NASCAR pace truck, uh, the year before, and this one again is a special edition model. Had a little bit more of a hot rod tune on it from the factory, um, and it's a 2-door, short wheelbase, short box. Uh, I think it'd be a great vehicle for some of those like the $3,000 Hoopty Challenge and stuff, because he's not asking a lot of money for the truck. The body work looks appropriate for a duct tape drags or $3,000 Hoopty Challenge truck, because the previous owners did not take very good care of the truck, other than maybe they stored it indoors, because here we are in Kansas where they do salt the roads and stuff and it snows in the winter. This truck doesn't have any rust on it. The worst part of the rust was somebody along the way had decided they wanted to put a fifth wheel hitch in the bed of a half-ton truck, and the only parts that were welded was the parts that they bolted to the frame for the fifth wheel hitch, and then battery tie down bolt. It's the diameter of a toothpick, and it usually would have been maybe a 5 or 6 millimeter. Look up welding tips and tricks. Jody is amazing, explains everything. I'm addicted to watching those videos, but something in here just doesn't connect. I probably should watch those videos standing in the garage, finish watching the video, and then turn around and go do the task. Maybe something more to that effect. And then, I am getting the right gases now and the right stuff. I mean, one of the videos I watched today, they were even talking about take some acetone, wipe down your filler rod before you start trying to weld. I mean, I've always the guy that showed me how to TIG weld, Scotch-Brited his, because he was like, well, all of these things are contaminated. He is correct, but his idea was just to scrub it with Scotch-Brite. Well, after you scrub a couple of those things, isn't your Scotch-Brite contaminated too? So I mean, the video today, they were wiping it down with acetone, with a clean white rag, so you can tell where you've gotten the rag dirty or not. And I do, due to my day job, I always have acetone nearby. So that's kind of a cleaning agent that I use around here. Please drop his link. That'll work. And I probably have been watching welding tips and tricks. Yes, I think I have. Does he do like a welding school also? It kind of looks more like a classroom welding setting. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't put up a link if you guys want in on this. I forgot how to share it. I sent a few of y'all the link prior, I think, earlier in the week. Invite. There we go. It's been that long, I forgot how to find the invite button. All right, well, we only have 2 of us here anyway, but I'm glad you guys came. I'm glad you're sticking around. And like I said, in the future, I'm hoping to have a little bit more. I planned on having the truck out of here for this tonight, and I was running late getting here from work. And also my internet was down, and I struggled with that until the very last minute coming here. I was already late coming in here, so I had to use my phone as a hotspot. So. Nuclear welder. No, I do not think. I do not think I've seen his channel then. My dad once worked at a nuclear power plant when there was new construction while they were building it, and I remember specifically finding about a 3.5 foot crescent wrench and pipe wrench in the attic when I was a young kid. My dad told me to never touch it because it had been used at a nuclear power plant. Like I said, they probably hadn't even powered up the plant, but in his mind, because of where it had worked, it was contaminated. And also, it was an oddly huge wrench that, I've still to this day probably wouldn't find much use for it. I say that, and then I work on wind turbines, where we have some of the nuts on those towers are start at 2 inches. Hands of gold. I will have to hit. You know what? I'll copy that. Actually, I'm going to put it on the screen too. And then, see if it'll let me copy. Maybe not. It's not going to let me copy it. But I'll try to find that link tomorrow in the the comments and then hit it over to uh, YouTube. Jump on there, see it. So anyway, MIG, TIG, spray, arc. Goodness, I remember we did some sort of powder spray for cast iron. I kind of used more of like a blowtorch and a powder, and you would heat up the cast iron to a certain temperature and then spray that in. And that was usually a fix if you had gone a little too far while port and polishing an old intake port or exhaust port. So, and so yeah, that was. It's always fun to try different metal welding and repair techniques. I've watched one video many years ago. Jay Leno had, of course, something very unique and more of a one-off or one of three type products. I want to say it was like a motorcycle engine or something to that effect. It was a very unique antique, and the block was cracked, and it was not very repairable. But what they did is they would drill it, tap it, and insert an insert that would break off into there. And they had a pattern where they would drill it ever so far, get all those installed, and then go back in between each and drill and tap and put another insert in. And that was how they fixed that particular block. It was a no weld and no torch repair, and those managed to stitch back that crack. He welded for a living, and this guy amazes you. Yeah, I would probably be very skinny if I welded for a living. Then again, once you do something enough times, and you get good at it, and I'm very much a hands-on person. Once I do something enough times that I'm good at it, I get better at it quick. I will say I'm great with a grinder because that is a primary task for being a composite repair tech. You have to grind, a layer of glass that's a tenth of a millimeter sometimes, and you're going for this layer, and that layer, and you stop at a set number of layers, as usually told by an engineer. And of course, they're observing your photos and sometimes even want to live stream or whatever and look at your work to see, oh, you went too far. Now you're going to have to take even more of this off and go more that way. And yeah, you learn real quick not to go too many layers. And then sometimes you just have to keep going until you get to the bottom of the damage. That's why they call it a BOD picture. You got to get to the bottom of the damage. What else do we got? That light is blinding no matter where I put it today. And then I usually have lights specially for cameras. Oh, they're in the bed of the truck right now. One of them is. I think the other one's in the cab of the truck because I was in there trying to work on something the other day. 8.5 tons. Oh, a sculpture. A 49-foot tall sculpture, huh? And it weighed 8.5 tons. Whew. That's kind of a unique sculpture. That being said, we currently have in the yard very, very large grid tie inverters. I think I'm using the right word. When you build a wind turbine park or any sort of energy production generation plant, you have to tie that into the grid. Where with the wind turbine parks, the turbine itself is at 690 volts. It goes to the bottom of the tower. It gets converted to either 15, 20, or 30,000 volts, and then that goes underground cables to the grid tie plant or grid station. Once it's at the grid station, then it gets stepped up even higher, depending on where the nearest grid is. Sometimes they're 150, 200,000 volts. And so we have two of those that just arrived today. Severe heavy permit loads, and they're actually in the yard to get changed onto a bigger trailer because there's a gravel road in Nebraska that they have to go down, and it requires at least 2 more axles than what's currently on the trailer. So they have to unweld those from the trailer, unchain them from the trailer, rig them up with 2 cranes, move them over to another trailer, and then put them all back down, welded up, and chained down. Yes, they are so heavy that they're not just chained down, they're also welded to the trailer. Uh, that is also, we have some that are even larger that they actually weld to the rail cars, and they don't even chain them down. They just weld them to the rail car. So ah oh, should I not show that? Sorry. Um, so link to the project videos. Uh, so that's for the sculpture. That sounds pretty interesting. No sharing. Okay. Sorry about that. Um, oh, I can show it on here. So just people on the stream can go view it. Oh, there's only 3 of us here. Well, if anybody chooses to watch the stream later, I guess they can find this. We'll just show it for a short period of time. So anybody wants to go check that link out can go get this sculpture, I guess. All right, just don't share it around, he says. All right, cool beans. Yeah, I've actually posted some videos in advance and kept them private, and then launched them as public at a later time and date. Uh, okay. Um, that way, uh, like when I went on my cruise, my first cruise, I'd already filmed, edited, and posted a video that went live while I was on the cruise because I wanted it to stay on the normal, like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And that way I had a video go live while I was on my cruise. But I found out real quickly because on my second cruise, I wanted 2 videos to come out that week, and you can only have one in the spool at a time. So what I've learned now is you can upload them, keep them as private, and then change them from private to public later. You just have to have a short burst of internet. So we did actually on our second cruise have the internet access package. And then also when you get to port, you usually have an internet. So well, I think in the future for port days, I'd just log in real quick, make a video public, and get back out to enjoy my vacation. That's the only thing my wife doesn't let me do is she doesn't really want me concerned with my YouTube channel. That is neat. She doesn't want me concerned with my YouTube channel while we're on our cruise. She wants me to relax. And I mean, between my regular day job and my YouTube channel, keeps me pretty busy. In my words, it keeps me out of trouble. Because I'm not out, partying or going to bars or hanging out with people. I'm here. If they know where to find me though. And I have had some people pop in and join me here in the garage. So steel spine and stainless coverings. That does sound neat. I'm sure that's once I get to see that link, will be a neat video to watch. So anyway, anybody else got any topics? We've kind of gone over my stainless exhaust plans here. That's when I buy those it comes 2 tubes to a package. I like that, and they're probably 36-inch packs. So I had 2 tubes of 2.5, and now 2 tubes of the 3-inch. Oh, we lost one. So yeah, it's been a project. I wasn't gonna do anything fancy for the exhaust to get it to the No Name Nationals. I was literally just gonna take it to a muffler shop and say, please, please, please make this and this piece made up. Get me some O2 sensor bungs put in there, and have enough exhaust to at least make it past the driver's seat. And of course, once I get out past the transmission, it's easy after that. In fact, what I'm doing is I'm actually keeping all the exhaust routed between the frame rails instead of dropping below the frame, which I've seen a lot of square body Chevys and stuff. Their exhaust hangs down below the truck, and you can see it from a ways. But what I'm doing with this one is it's going to stay up high. I don't see any reason to drop it down. Um, as I recall, the other exhaust kind of ran between the frame rails as well. Maybe hung on bad, maybe a half an inch to an inch below in places, and then it went. Originally, it went over um, the rear axle. Um, that part since got sawn off and thrown away. When I put I like the sound of those mufflers. They still had a little bit of a drone to them. The Cherry Bomb Vortexes. Um, so it's a box, big square box muffler, pretty high flowing still. I like the sound of those, but they a little pricier and they're not available in stainless. And since I was already doing the full stainless, I was like, let's just pick a different muffler. Um, I still might try to opt for something similar to those. Uh, if this has too much drone, which I suspect it might. But for around town here, it'll get me driving now. Um, so that's the main goal right now is just get driving, get this truck in and out of the garage. Uh, that way, my landlord can see that, hey, I indeed do have this truck back together and running. Um, so right now, I've actually drained the radiator because we're expecting freezing weather tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. So in my world, being from South Texas and growing up helping my dad put rebuilt engines and stuff, um, it was always bad juju. You never put antifreeze in until you've got probably 300 to 500 miles on the vehicle. You know, you figure out everything that's fixed. Make sure everything's fixed and working. That nothing's going to have to come back out, or that your radiator's messed up. Well, this truck had a fairly fresh radiator put in when I first got the truck. That was one of the main issues with the truck was the radiator was leaking. And when I took the radiator out, I realized the solder joint for where the heater core plugged into the radiator no longer had any solder. It was just floating around there. It was crimped, and it was a brass on brass, but it was crimped, and there was no solder there, and it was leaking like crazy. I know I could have probably spent some time and soldered it back up, but at that point, I'd already ordered a new radiator, and I was expecting to find a radiator in even worse condition. Oh wow. But the heater core on the truck also has been replaced recently. That was also another problem with the system. I filled it up, and by the next time I drove it a week or so later, it wouldn't have a full radiator anymore. So I'd always have to put about a gallon of coolant or water or something in. So anyway, that whole front clip got pulled off the truck, set outside back in March when I pulled the old small block out. And it took me that long to get the big block in and installed and all this stuff. A lot of it's my fault. I decided to take the body off the frame and paint the frame. So from the headache rack of the truck forward, that part of the frame has been derusted, stripped, painted, and painted and put back together. Some of the hardware kind of got, there's some extra holes here and there. My biggest problem was I did not save. I don't know what happened to them. The pictures of the fuel rails and brake lines on the passenger side, I took all the lines loose, set them in the bed of the truck, went to go put them back in. Couldn't figure out where the hardware went, the clips and all that stuff. I should have taken very detailed pictures and video and saved them in a special folder, which possibly still did, but I can't find them. So long story short, I was also swapping to high pressure fuel lines for the fuel injection. So I'd already had a nylon fuel line to go all the way from the tank to the engine compartment. Again, one of the reasons the truck would not have passed tech. I now have a special tool to make the quick connect fittings out of your normal steel lines. So I can make a normal, like a brake line style flare. I also can make the transmission style flares for like GM transmissions. I could do the flare for GM power steering. And then I could do the flare, like I said, for the quick connect fuel lines for both Fords and Chevy. Let me show you real quick. So there's one of your quick connect female fittings. I can make the steel line that would actually go in there and clip into this. So that now is a tool I do have. It's sitting in the bed of the truck right now underneath one of the boxes for a battery powered drill. So, and I even brought that tool with me because I'd seen 6% recycled had some sort of fuel or brake line fitting uh, broke on him when he was getting his vehicle there to the No Name Nationals. But by the time I got there, he'd already parted something together from hardware store and junkyard parts. Yes. Hill Country, part of Texas. It's forecast 2 nights down in the 30s this week. The trees haven't even changed color. Yes. We had that problem last year too, didn't we? Down in Texas. Got an early freeze and it really shocked the plants. My wife had committed earlier this year. She's been telling me she wanted some sort of greenhouse. And so she had a pretty good gun show a couple weeks ago, and she ordered, I think it was just a kind of a tarps and bows type thing, or the metal or plastic fittings. And then she just took and bought some cheap plastic and stretched over it. We're actually, it was 35 degrees this morning here in Kansas. And it's supposed to snow tomorrow and sleet Sunday, or snow again Sunday. Need double flare for the brake lines. Yes, I do have the normal standard double flare brake line tool. Also, this is just a hydraulic unit that has fancier dies. That's the best way to word it. The dies are actually the magic to this unit, not the hydraulic part. The hydraulic makes it a lot easier, but the dies are what actually crimps those different styles of flares and connectors. So, what's the next comment? Yeah, somebody else can have the snow. I don't want it either. That being said, my wife has rediscovered a part of her family, her dad's side of the family, which I've known her off and on since high school. And now we've been married for 10 plus years, 11 years. And she's never made mention of her dad or his side of the family at all. And she found one of her cousins on the internet, and now she talks to one of her great aunts daily. And they're inviting us up to Michigan during Christmas break to go snowmobiling. That's actually the fun part of snow, right? I don't like working in the snow. Don't like driving much in the snow because a lot of places it's just miserable. Stuff's always melting and crud, and it's not fun if it's just kind of in the way, especially if you're trying to work. And typically, my experience with snow is it happens where I work because I'm from Texas. Ultimately, I usually don't get to experience snow unless I'm out somewhere where it does snow while I'm trying to work. So I don't like snow much. I've done a couple times where I've gone skiing or snowboarding or snow tubing. 2 years ago, it was during COVID. It was more than 2 years ago now, huh? The wife came up and they managed to barely get the tubing in Ruidoso, New Mexico. They had that opened up, and we actually made it to the last weekend in March during spring break, and that was the last of their snow. It was melting rather rapidly, but it was, they had all their stuff set up to where the snow, the slush runs off in a certain way to where, you don't have to stomp around in the mud and stuff very much. Dean Stevenson. Oh, you're over in New Zealand, huh? Washing before the snow hits us. Hang out. Well, again, this snow's not for everybody. I'm not a huge fan of it. Oh, you're in North PA, huh? Yeah, you guys get a ton of that stuff. One of my buddies, oh goodness, I'm trying to remember where he lived before. I want to say it was close to Jonestown, and then he moved over to Altoona and Altoona gets a lot less of that stuff. And he's not far from the Railroad Museum there in Altoona. Um, he actually lives in what used to be VFW Hall Number 3. That building was initially built by the German Catholic Church back when the town was very. Uh, Altoona had very much so different nationalities. They had the Polish, they had the Jews, they had the different like Italians, and it was in villages. If you're Italian, you lived in the Italian village, and everybody pretty much all worked at the railroad or some sort of factory in town. And so then after World War One, the people weren't so keen on the Germans, so the German Catholic Church sold that building to the VFW and built a new church that was just a Catholic church. So they took that the pre-name off there, I guess. So anyway, somebody saying hi. My Kiwi brother. That's right. I've seen a couple Kiwi check marks in my comment sections down there, so I suppose I know who they're coming from. From cousin in Spain. His wife is Colombian. Colombian snow. That's a different kind of snow. Nose candy? All right. So what else is going on, guys? All right. So there's some comments in the comment section. That guy. That's right. Oh, so yes, the truck's up and running. With this next piece of exhaust bolted in, I'll have the O2 sensors on both sides, and I'll be able to drive it around a bit and keep adding exhaust as I go. Like I said, I've got a lot of the pieces down to the mufflers here. Well, I mean, some of it's going to be pretty straight. Just come straight off the last pipe and keep going. Put some hangers to it and keep going. And then I haven't decided whether I'm going to go over the rear axle or do a turn down or turn out. Kind of leaning towards a turn down, just for simplicity. And there's a driver's seat bolted in right now. I do have not even the original bench, but a bench that came out of a Suburban that was in much better shape than my bench was. When I bought the truck, the bench, it was one of the velour seats that had been in the sun for way too many decades. There was no velour left for the most part, and the foam was mostly gone. And I didn't see trying to save that seat would have needed new foam and upholstery. And that foam was rotten and full of dust and dirt. And, well, we'll just say there was a rat's nest in the truck several times upon its life. So I decided upon, when I found this Suburban bench seat, that would be my new front seat. One of my earlier videos with this truck that actually has done quite well was putting the universal Mexican blanket style seat cover in that bench seat. I have views probably up to 1,600 views, maybe 2,000 on that video. And it took it a full year, almost a year and a half, for that video to really start getting views. And then what's another video that's done good? But anyway, another video, took it to the same RV park, was when I did the troubleshooting on, finally got it to where I could switch fuel tanks. I diagnosed it, did some wiring, had it to where I just was able to jumpers back and forth and be able to switch tanks. And eventually I got the new switch, came in. The switch didn't work as good as the wires. But with the high pressure fuel system for the fuel injection, I'm not able to run the tank selector that much. I won't be able to run it with the high pressure, but I will keep it. I'm going to try to figure out a way to have a switch so I can tell how much fuel is in each tank on the same gauge in the dash. That being said, I do have a transfer pump that will transfer fuel from one tank to the other. just dumping it into the filler neck of the primary tank. Uh, I know it's in some worlds or some places that doesn't sound correct or legal, and that's coming from, well, a lot of people buy those diesel trucks, the bro dozers as I call them, and then they put that in bed fuel tank in there. That is not a DOT tank, and neither are the pumps that mount to them. So it's not a certified tank to be using fuel from while you're in motion. You could stop the vehicle, get out, pump fuel into your tank with those tanks, but you're not technically allowed to pump fuel from those in-bed tanks into your fuel tank. That being said, I'm using a clickety-clack pump on the driver's side tank to pull fuel from that tank, and then there's a hose adapter that goes in line with my fuel filler neck that has a little fitting in it that will take fuel and dump it straight into that tank. And that will probably have to be on a timer because you don't want to overfill the tank either. Just put it on like a push button where it goes for, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. I'll play with that later and say, hey, I could pump this much fuel in 2 minutes. That's a good time to, go down the road, hit that button, know they got 2 more gallons of fuel in the tank or whatever it is. So, high-low system. Yeah. What's this? All right. So that taking it's maybe Eric Clapton or Al Green. This is for Dean. I'll corrupt him yet. Oh, Dean Stevenson's. All right. Yeah. It's a good music video apparently. So we'll have to watch that later. If anybody would like to jump in, I'll put the link up again. I've done all the talking for an hour and 2 minutes, which, if you hear my wife say it, I could talk for hours on end anyway. Listening to music while listening to me, huh? You're probably better off listening to music. But anyway, my initial plan was to, like I said, get the truck out of here before the live stream started and then do a little bit of light welding, and didn't happen. Like I said, was struggling with some internet and stuff. Left you a message. Rich brought me here. Thanks. YouTube's the best. BB King. Got the Kiwi check. But better show that one. There we go. So, we're up to 5 now. We're really jumping and growing here. I was trying to wrap it up, but if we're still going, we'll keep going. Somebody dropped something other than the music stuff's great, but I don't know enough about some of that to keep conversation going. So, what else? Like I said, there's video coming soon. Mail Call Monday with the exhaust pipes and such. There's another video that's in the pipe. I just found it on my phone the other day. Local car show. Lot of interesting vehicles to include a lowrider bumping his hydraulics all the way to, I want to say late 60s, early 70s Jimmy before the C10s. So probably the last body style before what's commonly known as the C10 before the square bodies. The body style before that. He had a nice truck there, Tweety Bird yellow, with a little Tweety Bird sticker in his window or something. He did a great interview, considering he's not a YouTuber. You guys at the No Name Nationals gave some great interviews. That video, I've done some of the kind of shorter videos, and what I want to do is take and combine all of those, and then all the photos I took, and some of the other footage that's, some of the burnouts and stuff, and put it into one longer video. It's probably going to be, 15 to 20 minutes total, maybe. And that's a video that's coming in soon. Got some footage I just found on my phone today, too. I actually dropped this truck when I was putting the front wheels on. And that was, it was right after I come back from the No Name Nationals. I was pretty worn out and groggy, but I was still trying to push to get this truck on the road. And I had it all up and running. And it was like, hey, It took another week to figure out the situation with the Hydro Boost. Um, the deal with the Hydro Boost, um, I kept thinking I needed to bleed the power steering and get all the air bubbles out. Well, what happened was it was overheating the power steering fluid and causing it to burp constantly after it would run for a minute or two. And the reason it was doing that is there's a fork inside that Hydro Boost that when I put it back together, the fork was supposed to go on the spool valve and it was stuck behind the spool valve. And so that whole assembly was trying to run at full boost the whole time because one of the pistons was in the wrong position and the spool valve was in the wrong position. So it was pumping high pressure power steering fluid through that whole thing the whole time, and it was overheating the power steering fluid. And again, I had to get in there, take the Hydro Boost back out of the truck, rebuild the thing, and I wound up going back together with the original body, even though it had been leaking with the original O-rings. I took the O-rings from the newer Hydro Boost unit and stuck them into this body because it takes a week to get any sort of gaskets around here. So I do have the gasket set now. When I change to disc brakes on the rear axle, I'll change the other. I've got a hybrid system going on with parts of one Hydro Boost and parts of another Hydro Boost, and then now I have most of the same Hydro Boost put back together with the original master cylinder. Once I go disc brake rear axle, I'm going to change back to the other body from the other newer Hydro Boost, and then it's also getting the master cylinder from that same truck. So I'll have the master cylinder, Hydro Boost, and rear disc brakes all from one vehicle, one parts truck will get put into this truck. But that's a later project. Probably a few months out because I want to get it up and driving first. And there's some body work definitely to be done on this truck. Still need the shifter put together because I still want to have a floor mounted shifter, but I want it to look and emulate the manual shifter from the original of this truck. Even though I've eliminated the third pedal, I've even swapped over to the wide pedal coming from another parts truck because Square Body Eric has square body parts and his prices are reasonable, negotiable. Usually buy him a beer or something or swap some other parts with him. So anyway, let me get up to your you like this truck? You can have it. My wife would probably give it to you in a heartbeat too. My wife's nickname for this truck is the Mistress, which I'm sure she's not the only wife to give somebody's project vehicle that nickname. Don't need filler wire, just pulse pedal. Oh, TIG weld. Yeah, you definitely have to back purge the stainless. That's a given. And now that I have 2 tanks and 2 regulators, just set it on a low setting and put some caps on there. Beer bribery, yes. Let's get to what's this? Yes, when you overheat it, it develops micro bubbles. Yeah, you know what? I'm pretty much having to change the fluid anyway. By the time I pulled the unit out, most of the fluid's been dumped all over the floor, and I'll probably just flush it one more time. It does work now, and yeah, I probably smoked some of the fluid a little bit. Damn near smoked the pump the first time I started the truck because I didn't know. I was busy doing other stuff and didn't know that thing was running full blast. Yes, beer bribery works good with Square Body Eric. Actually, the guy didn't drink much beer, but his prices on parts are still very reasonable. Hey, this video live's been an hour and 9 minutes, and that was the first beer that I finished. So my wife can't pick on me too much. So anyway, what else? Dean is an easy target. Do a ton of sanitary welding for food. I saw a video about that. I didn't watch it, but I saw that title earlier today about sanitary welding. Fill us in. What is sanitary welding? You kind of give us a quick definition there in the comment section. My fame has preceded me. How is that? I have been recognized at a few places. Some of the local auto parts stores, uh, they quickly recognize the JSCB and call me either that or my name, um, and that's Hector over there at the Advanced Auto Parts. But and I notice he does try. The reason I like that particular store, even though it's clear across town, um, okay, so that's how you set up the, I guess, with the sanitary welding. Um, but anyway, I like that store because Hector will go the extra mile to help you find a part. You got a part in mind that it needs to be a certain part or a specific year model or some oddball part that because I do come up with those. I'll be like, hey, I need this for this specific short year model range, and this part is supposed to help me do this or that. Kind of like my fuel pressure regulator is one of the Corvette fuel pressure regulator air fuel filter combo unit. So high pressure fuel goes into that unit, sends high pressure to the fuel line, fuel rail, and the rest gets dumped back to the tank. So you keep that circuit back to the tank pretty short. Yes. Okay. Low slag welding for beer, alcohol, paint relief supplies. Sanitary welding is for food and beverage services. Yes. And beverages equals pain relief. I like that. Can't have internal flaws. So I guess it's being what, magnafluxed or well, if it's stainless, you can't even do that. Is it X-rayed? But the I remember when I was in the military, we had NDI testing facilities that traveled with us because we worked aviation. So if certain things would be damaged or suspected damaged, we had an aircraft go down with a hard landing. The airframe itself was damaged beyond military repair. It had to go back to Boeing to be repaired. But a lot of the components from that aircraft, if we needed them, they had to be X-rayed or sometimes what's the other, ultrasounded to test for cracks and stuff before we could use them on the aircraft. And then that aircraft, when it left, looked like a Christmas tree with the red tags hanging off of it everywhere. So the do not use tags. A bunch of people saying hello to each other. Hey, hey. X-ray is passive. Oh, so passivated. So what kind of testing would it get? Or is the word passivated the word of the day? That's the expensive word. I don't know if that what that means. Hey. Back is getting sore. Standing in the same place too long. Well, yeah, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. We talked about the truck. We talked about some of the little welding projects. We talked about the exhaust. Um, so, like I mentioned before, I've only got one seat in there. Swapped from the Suburban bench seat. These seats are out of a Suburban as well, but they're scoped and cleaned. Um, they're captain seats, and they have the console that goes between them. So the goal there is to eventually get both seats and the console mounted. Still plan to make the shifter up. There's already one video or three videos where I made a shifter that still has the same amount of throw that the manual shifter would have had, same length of stick. My goal there is to actually cut the flat bar stock and attach the actual manual shifter stick to it and make it all fit inside the original manual stick shift boot. Between the boot and the floorboard, some of it's actually going to hang down below the floorboard, and that'll have the push-pull cable to actually shift the automatic transmission into gear. All right, so he's saying passivation is an internal acid wash. So I guess that acid wash would detect flaws and stuff and point that out to people. Am I correct? So that's one of the projects. They'll get the seats in. That should be an easy project, but with me, that's going to take a while. What took so long on the driver's side is the factory nuts that were welded to the bottom of the floorboard. Um, they were stripped out, rusted out. Let's see, rephrase that. They were rusted so tight that I broke the bolts off in them and had to drill them out. And then when I got the truck up and running with the old bench seat, I just put a nut on the bottom side of that and run a longer bolt. What I'm trying to do is go back in and put a nut welded to the bottom of the floorboard again, so I can just run a bolt through real quick. Hey, Mater made it. Don't drink the brown acid. That doesn't sound too appealing. I'm assuming they're talking about the passivation acid. um, so the problem was where those nuts go. There's a piece of subfloorboard that comes in, kind of makes a channel right below the nut, and so you can't get a grinder in there to grind the nut off. So I wound up using a die grinder, and there's not much room for the die grinder either, because that's also where the rest of the floorboard dives off at, just very shortly afterwards. So fought with die grinders and different various flap wheels that fit a die grinder and stuff to cut. It took me 2 evenings to cut 2 nuts down, enough to where when I put the new nut on, it still had a little bit of space from the floorboard, but I didn't have to run an excessively long bolt to put those seats back in. And then on the other side of the same seat, because this truck never had buckets before, it was a matter of just drill a new hole and put a nut on the bottom side, snug it up with the wrench, get under there with a welder, done. So that side went pretty good. And then the front part, because the way the floorboard drops, they had a seat adapter that I was smart enough to take from the Suburban when I took those seats out, and it spaces the thing up off the floorboard, so all 4 corners of the seat sit flush and level. So that I've got the practice and experience on the driver's side. What I might do on the passenger side, if I see that the nuts are equally as destroyed, I might just cut that portion of the floorboard out, get some fresh sheet metal, weld a nut to the bottom side of it, put that piece of sheet metal in and weld it in, and be done with it in a day, instead of spending 2 days trying to grind some old rusty stuff that I can barely reach. Or I just might weld a nut to the nut and just use a longer bolt. So there's a game plan in place for that. Oh my goodness. The conversation in here's gone off the rails. Pepto Chaser with the milk of magnesia and don't dilute the acid stuff, the brown acid, I'm sure. So yeah, I've got the seats. We'll go in eventually. The main point is to get the exhaust first, then the seats. There's a lot of other little projects. That's not on this list. Actually, I think it might be. Yeah, it made that list, the old list. Most of the shit on that stuff on that list is crossed out, because that was my list I printed up for the No Name Nationals to get me there. And the new list, I don't think it's in print. It's actually on cardboard. But the new list is shorter in a way, but it's more in depth. It's stuff that want to have done and doesn't necessarily have to have done. But before I drive it any significant distance, I'll do those. Need to mount the ECU and TCU under the hood to where they're not going to flop around and get tangled up and stuff. Like the power steering belt and stuff. That stuff makes the truck go down the road and shift. So you kind of don't want it to get stuck in a belt. What else? Eventually, we'll replace the windshield. As we fix doors and stuff, the window glass, some of the windows are in great shape. We'll just reuse them. They're going to get new gaskets. Some of the doors are in horrible shape. They're going to get replaced with doors that have sheet metal that's in better condition. Cab corners, both sides will get replaced eventually. Roof of the cab is dented, but not heavily creased. So we're probably going to use, I'm going to try to go for a paintless dent repair, where you use the glue-on stuff and pull the dents. If not, I do have the stud welder, and I could use those type of studs to pull the dents. But then, I mean, we're still going to paint the roof regardless, but I don't want to grind through the original paint and then have to build it all back up if we can avoid it. If we can just pull the dents and pull the dents first and then come back around. Um, come back around just to kind of scuff the original paint and get it painted. That'd be even better. Firewall needs a little touch up from, even though it just got freshly repaired and replaced and painted. Putting the engine in, kind of scuffed the firewall. I did have help here that day. There's some more lost footage that I hadn't even thought about in a while. We slid that engine and transmission in about 7 minutes, which is amazing because I did a live stream where I've test fitted that, and it took me 3 hours to put it in by myself. But I learned a lot from that experience, and what I learned is go ahead and space the body up off the frame, slide the engine and transmission in, set the body back down, it's done. Getting better at moving the body around. I notice I have seen some people move square body Chevy cabs with engine hoist, which, I mean, you'd have to have a second engine hoist for that. This is a crew cab. Twice as many doors, twice as much glass, twice as much floorboard, twice as much roof. So, yeah, not moving that with an engine hoist very easily, even though it probably has the lifting capacity. Where to hook it, where to rig it, that kind of stuff. What I used is screw jacks. Just get them from the junkyard every time I go. Get an extra screw jack, and those fit quite well between the frame and the body. And you can stick those in there, jack it up, and get the body up off the frame. Put some 2x4s in there, space it up, keep it there. Actually, for the back, because I only have 3 of those, I got one for each front corner. And in the back, I actually use, of all things, cinder blocks, a screw jack, and then once I get it up there, I have jack stands to hold the body, or some 2x. But yeah, it's back on there. But now I know in the future, if I have to take the engine and transmission in or out, I will just unbolt the cab from the frame. I also learned previously that the initial goal when I took the truck apart is to spend as little time hassling with engine and transmission going over the core support. I just took the whole front clip off, set it outside. It's a 2 or 3 person carry. Get that stuff outside, set it on the ground. Get to the engine and transmission is that much faster. And that worked quite well, getting the old one out. And it didn't take too long to put it all back together. Going back together, the worst part of that is I did about a roughly 2-inch body lift to help the body clear the transmission and stuff. And the body mounts I had left over for the front were a different thickness, and I still try to use the same amount of spacers between the body mounts in the front clip. And we wound up jamming up the top of the fender was jammed up against the door, and the bottom of the fender was kind of pointed away from the doors. And the guys I had here helping me couldn't figure out why, and so I came back out here the next evening and jacked it back up, and pop those spacers out, set it down with no spacers, and it was a perfect fit. Doors lined up pretty evenly with the fenders, even though the driver's side door is not in fantastic shape. The top and bottom of the door is actually the best part of the door. The mid part of the door has door damage from a fender, because this truck has been bumped and wrecked and stuff a few times, and there's evidence of that on the door where it's folded in from the fender jamming up against it. Once they, how doors and fenders don't get along. And so this door has kind of got a roll part there in the middle. So that's not even the worst part of the door. I think the worst part of the door is the bottom, because it's just rotted out. So along with the rocker panels on this truck, or there were no rocker panels when I got this truck. Now, my buddy was like, it's just sheet metal, man. Just buy you some more. Weld it on. Well, little did I know the sheet metal for this truck's not truly available. I would have actually done better going to a junkyard, cutting off a quarter of the floorboard of a Suburban, as well as the pillar in the middle, and figuring out how to splice it back in off of a non-rusty non-rusty floorboard from and rocker panel from a Suburban, because a lot of the Suburbans had running boards that protected the rocker panel from all your road debris and road salts and just crud getting in there, even water splashing back up from rain. Those running boards, every one of them I've seen in the junkyard are in horrible condition, but the ones that have the running boards in really horrible condition have the best rocker panels. So at this point now, if I had to do this project over again, I'd go cut entire big sections of a Suburban apart and bring them home with me and weld them into this floorboard. Um, the rocker panels I have are partial panels. There's no inner panel for the rear doors. Cannot find that sheet metal anywhere, even looking for a Suburban. I guess he's asking about the Mustangs. Asking for a friend. So, I saw, if he's still here, Mater's Workshop. You still here, buddy? I did, but no Fox Mustangs were sold OEM in New Zealand or Australia. It was JDM Mustangs from 81. So I guess they made it to Japan and then got to New Zealand from the black market. And Mandy's here. Uh, uh, the junkyard down there is crushing everything. That's sad, because I'm sure there's stuff there that people want. They just don't know where it's at. Maybe just can't quite afford it. I know the economy's been pretty bad. I know my money doesn't go as far as it used to go, and I still make the same money, maybe even slightly more. Yeah, gray market. Yeah, my brother had one that actually he bought from my uncle. Well, my uncle passed away, and he bought it from the widow. Um, it was a kind of a gray market. It was a Euro spec Porsche 928. Those things were dogs, by the way. I think it had like 2 or 3 speed automatic. The gear ratios were horrible for acceleration. Uh, the V8 was an early European V8, which was not great. Disorganized crate. Yeah. But that car was brought in, I think, at the exact minimum age that you could bring those cars in from Europe. I think it was 10 or 15 years at the time. And they brought that car in, got it here, and I think my uncle was probably the second American owner of that car and had it until he passed. And then my brother got it, and it already had problems. That's why my uncle wasn't driving it. And then my brother actually found a shop in our area back in Conroe that they worked on European cars as well, and they kind of took pity on my brother being a young high school student, and they did a lot of the work for very reasonably ridiculous prices. And most of the time, it was they did a lot of diagnostics, real quick diagnostics that they didn't charge us a lot for. And he's like, pulled a bunch of the relays. Hey, you need to replace this and this relay. Pay for the relay, bring it up here to us. We'll put it in, and you'll be able to drive your car home. Oh, by the way, buy such and such injector, like the old Seafoam. Put the Seafoam injector cleaner in it, and it'll help this Bosch mechanical fuel injection system run better. They gave us a lot of tips and hints on how to do this stuff ourselves, because none of us really knew how to work on European cars at the time, and to be honest, I probably still don't. That being said, I'm a lot more tech savvy as far as how both mechanical and fuel injection systems work. Especially with this, they basically I've done with it what people do as an LS swap. Only my LS happens to be an 8.1. I think there's 2 sensors that are different between the LS and the 8.1 because it effectively uses all the same computer sensor and everything. And then this particular one has the transmission controller harness separate, even though other, like say if it was a Chevy or GMC 2500 HD, the ECU actually controls the shifting of the transmission. But because this came out of a bigger truck chassis, they they used a separate TCU that would be programmed by Allison to shift. But anyway, they have some of these trucks. Don't tell me about that. I would actually, another thing I would look at if I was trying to do this project over again, I would have started off by taking the body off the frame, build a very good, reliable cart, maybe out of metal, to be able to haul the body around. Would have done a complete real frame off restoration, or get a different frame. Great channel out there, great videos, great product. There's a company out there, I think they're in Illinois. They do brand new chassis with modern engine and transmission. They use like a 2016, 2017 Chevy or GMC engine and transmission. They use an 8-speed automatic. They've engineered a whole new rolling truck frame to slide under your square body Chevy. Legend series is what they call those frames, and basically it's all new stuff. So they basically comes like with a warranty and everything. New suspension that they've designed to use all the same stuff from the your model truck. Very well engineered. These guys are smart. I kind of would either try to do that myself or buy one of their spec chassis and slide it up under there. That being said, they don't currently have a crew cab frame, but they are in works of doing a Suburban frame. And I bet money, since these share the same doors and windows with the Suburban, that I bet you the wheelbase between this truck and the Suburbans is probably the same. Blue face smiling. I'm lost. Oh, we only use metric when buying trucks. Really? But I mean, that's an option I would have considered going with, because I mean, they say that it's more money up front, but you're getting a whole new everything that goes under your truck, and that's effectively what I was trying to do to this. Put it together with rebuilt every suspension component I needed to, or felt needed attention. I've got new disc, pads up front. Checked the rotors; they were in good shape. So I mean, this truck is in pretty good shape now. Front suspension could use the actual 1-ton coil springs. I went to go put a lift in the front because I noticed the fenders, tires were dragging the fenders, and what it wound up being is one of the main coil springs was busted, about coil number 2 up, and so wound up going to the nearest junkyard, and the only square body coil springs they had were from a 1/2-ton. So currently have 1/2-ton springs under the front of the truck, which, especially now with the big block, sits a little low. I do want to put air helper springs in the rear axle, especially considering I tow the 5th wheel camper with this. And what's another thing? I kind of wouldn't mind putting a little bit of air spring up front to bring up the front a little bit more to keep those tires out of those fenders. This truck, I was surprised with how much metric I found on this truck from the factory. Typically, all the emission controls type stuff was metric. There's some other electric boxes that probably mostly dealt with the emissions type stuff. They were metric because this was a California emissions truck originally, and being a 1-ton California emissions truck, they had 2 smog pumps on it, which doubled the amount of stuff that I had to throw in the dumpster the day I took that crud off. And that dumpster had a heavy thump when I dumped that stuff in there. Metric crochet hooks. Must be crocheting drugs. Right. This conversation took some left turns, apparently. Concealed weapons. Oh, the crochet hooks, huh? Uh, what else? What else? I probably can't see it over there. Oh, there's just a camera. All right, so over here on the fender, uh, this is just a magnetic uh, tool magnet. It's supposed to go on the side of a tool cart, but right now it's holding my Sharpies. But yeah, I'll get some more stuff like that around the garage that's just going to be used on future projects shortly. But that I found it handy to just keep it there. If I had a wrench or something I need to keep nearby, I put it up there. Oh, I'm not against metric. I just wish they had decided earlier on to either go one or the other. They did on the 8.1s decide they were going to go full metric on those engines. So every thread on that engine, every bolt on that engine, down to the flywheel bolts is all metric, which at least makes that part of the project easier. So everything I put on that had to do with that engine, like the transmission cross member, I did all that in metric. Everything that's original to this truck is all SAE, unless it came as metric from the factory, which still some oddball bits and pieces. But I think there's some hardware in the dash that was metric for some goofy reason. And then there's also my least favorite one, because I currently only have one nut driver that fits it. I want to say it's like some weird size, like instead of a 1/4 inch, it's between 1/4 inch and the next normal size up. And I want to say it's like 5/32. And that little booger does not come in very many nut driver sets. I found a set the other day, and I bought 2 sets just for that one nut driver. I'm going to steal them out of there, and I'm going to spray paint them like that color, yellow, just so I will know that those are the ones that hold all the little accessories on the dash and some other places in the truck. So, but that's not metric, at least. 10 mil is all 10 mil. You know, the 10 mils are special. I was shooting some footage in here a while back, months ago, probably a year ago now. Test fitting the engine and transmission into the mock-up frame that I used. Was moving some stuff around and just happened to have the camera still rolling. Reached down, moved a cart, and underneath the cart was a 10 millimeter socket that had been missing for several weeks. Typically, though, that is the one socket that somehow I managed to keep up with, because you need them so often that you don't dare lose them. Now, that being said, sometimes you drop it and you can't find it for a while. Typically, I get them back. But 9/16 is the one I keep losing. 9/16, 9/16, 9/16. Every one of my toolboxes over here it has been missing a 9/16 for a significant amount of time. Now that I'm wrapping up parts of this project and I'm pulling my tools back together, I am finding them onesie twosies and stuff. I found one under the seat of my work truck, still attached to a 15-inch long 3/8 drive extension. And that got put in there at the last minute while I was packing to go to the No Name Nationals, and somehow it wound up under the seat. Yeah, the 5/32. Yes, it's tiny and it's a pain, and it's, like I said, it doesn't come in many of the nut driver sets. So, what are we up to? We're up to 5. We're going up and down a little bit. I don't steal your tools. I buy you your tools. I just borrow them back. All right. So, one of my videos I made recently, I was picking on myself. I have 3 broken tripods in this shop. Probably an additional 4 tripods. The Invisible Man in the back takes them. But yeah, I've got tripods all over the shop. I have a scrapyard of broken cameras. Now, that being said, this is another one that's been a common one that comes around. Tends to come with almost any. Let's hold that. Almost any tripod now comes with your. Can you get it to work? Oh, this one's got a lock on it. Cell phone holder, so you can put your cell phone on your tripod. More commonly around the garage here, the GoPro mounts, especially the GoPro magnets. I build my own, just put a magnet onto the GoPro mount, either double stick tape. I like to put the 1/4x20 bolt through them. I did kill the camera with a tree. Yes, I know. This is actually one of my favorite tripods, even though it's not in great shape because once it's kind of floppy. They're supposed to stay extended, but that way you can put a camera on there and mount it very close to the floor, or mount it somewhere and be very close to whatever countertop or whatever you're on. So another thing I've gotten smart about is figure out what size shoe your tripod has and buy extras, because you might have a different camera, you want to switch from a normal camera to a GoPro or vice versa, or even to your cell phone mount. You just take that shoe, pop it off, go, and be able to put it onto whatever tripod you want it to go on. Now my newest tripod doesn't use a standard shoe, but it's pretty heavy duty for a tripod. Hope I don't break it anytime soon. It's even heavier because that's not the thin wall aluminum. It's a little bit thicker. It's got the telescoping here, and instead of your normal thing, this is a ball and socket. So I can, and the tension adjust on here is pretty nice. So you can get the rotation smooth if you want, or you can tighten that up and lock it down. And then as well, this ball and socket joint you can do a little bit with pretty good too, like that. And the legs can be level, and it's got several other clicks, and then the legs telescope like a normal tripod. So having the ability for the legs to do that, and then of course in the stowed position you would telescope all those back down, but then run them up against parallel with the vertical part of the tripod anyway. So that's a unique one, but the shoe on that is different. And that's what I thought was strange. It's still got your V grooves, but it doesn't lock in as much on the other axis. Pi. Yeah, I killed not just a tripod with the tree. I killed the whole camera with the tree. I don't know if Mandy, if you were even here earlier, I did talk about I'm on my 4th camera that I've destroyed or damaged or destroyed 3. Pizza pie. Goodness gracious. All right. Divided a piece of pie. Divide and Conquer went from Divide and Conquer to Divide a Pizza Pie. And now he's got some lyrics here. Spherical math. Okay. The comment section here. All right. What else you guys want to talk about other than pizza pies and music? Talked about my cameras and stuff. Spherical trig. I thank y'all all for coming. We got 5 again. What happened there? Because of Kiwi. All right. Like I said, I thank everybody for coming. I didn't quite get the shop set up how I wanted to get set up to do the project I wanted to do tonight. But that's coming. We'll have the AI camera coming next week. And look forward to another Friday or Saturday live stream. In fact, I might just unannounced do live streams on Saturdays, especially after the AI camera gets here. So, anybody else got anything to talk about? I'm going to try to wrap it up. If not, because I can't. Wild Land Servant. Get the welder out and melt something. You know, with you being a professional welder, I'd just embarrass myself. Because even Marcus was telling me, he wasn't so impressed with his own welds on that material. Uh, Probably due to the poor quality of that material. It's, the cheap Chinese stainless. It's full of impurities, I'm sure. A metricated 8.1. Well, like I said, they GM at least at that point decided, hey, we're going to do all or none. You know, cooking your goose. Well, the only way to get good at welding is by doing it, right? Just got to keep doing it. So I am going to crack out the welder probably later. I actually need to clear space over there on the. We've got a steel table, but it's a mess right now, so I'm going to have to clear space before I can even do anything. Physics teacher. I bet the PE teacher could probably tell you about the same. You're gonna hit the ground when you hit the ground. I guarantee you won't be counting with a stopwatch as you're falling anyway. Not much box truck love. This is a flatbed right now, but actually, I kind of envy the toolbox beds. There's a local guy around here. His truck's not too far from this color. His truck was a service truck for the Love's truck stops. And the only thing they've done when they sold that truck is they took the Love's logo off and left all the other decals on the truck. And then the kid's dad changed the exhaust and put some Magna Flows or something else a little bit louder on it. It sounds good. I think it's a 6.0 motor in there, or maybe a 5.7. But it runs around pretty good. Even the toolbox in the back's actually got a dent in it. But I kind of like that the toolbox bed look. Kind of a very utilitarian, which pretty right on the path for this truck. What I'm contemplating doing with this bed is kind of skirting it and making some boxes for below the bed, and then I have some aluminum boxes that actually match each other that came off of a semi truck, and they're the slant top boxes. They're both aluminum, and I can mount one on each side. I would need to do a little bit of aluminum cleaning to them, and then either clear coat or paint them to match something. Even if I paint them just to match the bed. Are you picking on my hair or my mustache? Are you talking about somebody else's roots are gray? But yeah. So those are future projects. I'll probably put the disc brake rear end on way before that. Probably while I'm doing the disc brake rear end, I'll probably add the air helper springs. You're in dirt and two in the water. All right, gentlemen. Truckster love. Well, the Love's truck stops. I don't know if Kiwi Land's going to be familiar with those, but that's the semi trucks over here, and there's a chain of those truck stops that all their trucks are yellow with same logos, whether they're pickups or the semis, and yeah, they're kind of a neat chain of truck stops out there. As truck stops go, if you join their membership, they got rewards points. After so many bucks you spend there, you can get free hot dogs or sandwiches or sodas and stuff. TIG welding boats. Milton and Hamilton jets. Okay, that's kind of neat. I contemplated putting an engine welder on the bed of this thing, but the engine welder I have is not in fantastic shape. Probably needs a full tune-up and stuff. And do I weld that often? No. So Probably be smarter just to keep a generator around and maybe some sort of small MIG welder nearby. Be kind to one another. Yeah. Rich is being picked on. What? Uh, thank guys and girls. Have a wonderful evening. Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for all of y'all for coming. Uh, don't forget to hit that like button while you're here, please. You've been here long enough. Might as well. Yeah. Hopefully you liked some of the conversation, even if it wasn't mine. I'm getting sore from just standing in one spot, guys. All right. Well, if y'all can't think of anything else I need to talk about or comment on, I think about wrapping it up. Really? Somebody got to pick on them. You know, you're not being picked on. Maybe nobody loves you. Pear pie, Mandy. Yeah, I remember you making pear pie out of those Chinese pears that were in the front yard. Those things were hard as rocks until you cooked them. They were actually more like a potato, and then you had to cook them and boil them to soften them up to make a pie out of them. All right, guys. Oh, there's one more comment. Rich is nice. Pick on him. All right, guys. I'm going to let y'all go. Y'all enjoy y'all's evening or day, as you might be in the New Zealand factor of the world. So appreciate y'all coming. Y'all stuck around for almost 2 whole hours here. And like I said, I'm getting tired of standing in one spot too long. And like I said, appreciate y'all all coming. And we'll pick on all y'all later. Um, if y'all have any live streams, send me an email or something. I'll try to jump on there. I'm horrible about keeping track of live streams, but if I put it on my calendar, I'll do my best to get on there. Unfortunately, my day job keeps me very busy at times because not only am I trying to keep myself gainfully employed, I'm trying to keep about 6 other people gainfully employed as well. They don't realize how much I do to keep them busy working so they can get a paycheck as well. All right, Dean and uh, Rich, Mandy, Shelly. I think. Oh, goodness, he probably jumped back off already. Uh, Mater was here for a bit. Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. I know even Ray made it for a bit. So thank everybody for coming and good night. We'll see y'all next time. Hopefully next week. Oh, did I hit the end stream? No, I didn't.